Locked.
Hello there, and welcome back to another ClueCon Weekly. My name is David Duffett. I'm the worldwide community advocate here at Signalwire, and we delight every week in bringing along interesting people to talk about interesting things. And this week we've got Corey McFadden from Veneto. Hey Corey, how are you doing?
Very good, David. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, Corey. We've known each other a good long time, and Danielle Plica picked up on you, Corey, because you're a many times speaker, a veteran of AstraCon, and we've met each other over the years there and various other community and industry events like IT Expo, and more recently the first open source summit in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, very exciting.
A few months ago. Anyway, Corey, I know you, and I'm very pleased to know you and for us to be friends, but I'm wondering whether the ClueCon Weekly audience may not have come across you before. And so I wonder if you could give us a bit of an introduction to you, your company, and start off with, where are you geographically right now, Corey?
Sure. So we're just outside Center City, Philadelphia. Veneto is a communications focused company. Everything we do revolves around real-time communication in some capacity. We've been in the Astra space since 2005. We started off doing SMB stuff, and then over time, as Astras became more mainstream, our customers moved up market a little bit. So we have a number of Fortune 100 companies now. We've customers like Verizon Wireless, Capital One. We've got a U.S. government contract, so we do business with a lot of different federal agencies and whatnot. So that's some fun stuff, but our customers, as you might imagine, range from that to, the small and mid-sized companies around the Northeast United States. We have, pretty much every industry represented in some capacity. So over the course of the last couple months, we've seen a little bit of everything in terms of how the, quarantine and the pandemic stuff has played out. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. Let's start off in that mode. You'll have had to help a number of your customers, big and small, move to the work from home, or sometimes people call it remote working or distributed working scenario. What has been your experience there? Is there anything, a common theme that's popped up, or is everybody different?
Yeah, I think for the most part, everybody's dealing with the same challenges. You're taking people that don't have good internet connections or home network situations, and you're trying to, have them reliably do their work from home with, work areas that are not suitable for what they're doing. So that's really the biggest challenge. So for the first few weeks, I would say, mid-March, we saw everything effectively freeze as businesses took stock of the situation, absorbed the news, the directives coming in, all the various confusion. So deals and sales and everything just sort of, got quiet, but everybody was struggling with the work from home stuff. So from a support standpoint, we were flooded for at least 3 weeks, just getting people situated in their home offices, dealing with home network router issues, things like that. I heard all kinds of things coming in that we were dealing with. So, once that settled down, it got quiet for a few weeks and everything sort of, felt almost normal. It felt pretty quiet, but then I started to look at cost statistics compared with the previous year and the year before for our support and sales queues, and just looking at hour by hour numbers. And we really weren't off that much in terms of call volume. So I was surprised there. I've seen some, pretty dramatic numbers from trunking providers. We have some mutual friends in various parts of the world who shared some of their numbers, and we saw quite a bit of reduction on the aggregate. But as a business and a company that supports communications at a lot of small and mid-sized, as well as enterprise, obviously customers, our call volumes have been pretty consistent. So that's been surprising. But we used the quiet to get caught up on a lot of projects and just move forward with a lot of our development initiatives, things like that. So that's been good. Over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks, things have started to get a little bit more animated. People are starting to plot their returns to work, trying to figure out how they're going to get their workforces back into offices that are suddenly ill-suited. They're all open floor plan and, dense situations. And with these social distancing guidelines and face mask regulations and everything else that we're being, asked to work with, various parts of the U.S. are going to really struggle with that.
I was going to ask, philosophically, in your customer base, where do you think the percentages lie in those that do want to resume the back to the office model, and those that kind of take stock and say, oh, well, actually, we just realised that we can work just as well, or maybe well enough with a reduced cost base working from home? And where do you think those things will go in your customer base?
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to be in the commercial real estate business right now. I think the technologies that, you and I have been involved with over the course of the last decade are in everybody's face right now. And it's obvious that they can use these to be effective wherever they need to be. So for lots of workers, especially, highly skilled workers, folks that, were kind of on the borderline working from home before, I expect there to be some permanency to their relocation. For lower, income or lower skill set workers where, it's a manufacturing or it's a call center situation. I don't know. I mean, I think it's still too early to say. Obviously, manufacturing is, throw that one aside. That's not a good example, but anything that you can telework, I think there's going to be a percentage of people that will permanently be, doing that. There's some talk of, kind of shuffling the population in the office based on, even and odd days of the week, things like that. So, if your last name starts, with A through M, you come in on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, otherwise you come in Tuesday, Thursday. There's all kinds of, scenarios being floated right now, but
that's an interesting one. And that situation where you don't have all of the workforce showing up in the place of work at the same time, that what's the word I'm looking for? Asynchronous model, if you like, really kind of is the same as a remote working or a work from home.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure what the point is.
Not everybody's going to be there at the same time, and it's not necessarily a bad model, but it means skills like written communication become more important because people aren't necessarily connecting face to face because they're not all there at the same time.
Well, it's not much different than what we're dealing with right now. In terms of collaboration, if you're going to arbitrarily say, well, 50% of the people based on, some criteria randomly aren't going to be coming in, I'm not sure how that significantly differs from them just working from home as is. I think, key workforces, that need to collaborate, obviously long-term will be returning to some sort of, collaborative space, whether that be on a permanent basis or just, occasionally, I don't know. But I certainly see the footprint of office within the United States shrinking. I mean, there's no question that a lot of people are finding the productivity to be, greater than they anticipated. And they're looking at the numbers in terms of office footprint, and it's going to go down. There's just no doubt about that.
And indeed. I have a friend in the UK who's a fairly shrewd investor, and he says he's been saying that he sees a move for reasonably wealthy people away from investing in commercial real estate and actually just looking at buying themselves nicer and bigger houses that have got some space, some dedicated space to work in. Interesting set of situations there. Corey, how about Veneto itself? How were you operating ahead of this situation, and how have things changed for you internally as a company?
Yeah, so we've been, obviously working from home like everyone else. We fall underneath the guidelines in Pennsylvania of being an essential business because we support the communication operations of, various industries. So, we technically could ask our folks to go into the office, but, because we have these tools, there's really no point or no need. Someone will go in basically once a week to make sure that the mail is collected and that any packages are, received and sent. Our office is basically it's a large compound of, it's 3 different towers. They have some residential space as well as a large ring of commercial offices around the first floor. There's maybe 50 different businesses there. So luckily we have in sort of the reception areas, people who can receive packages for us without having our staff there all the time. So that's worked out pretty well. We have not really the most open floor plan. We have a lot of private offices. We do have a pretty good sized collaboration area where there's maybe 15 desks or so in a large open space. So that'll have to be adjusted, and we'll have to shuffle those people or just continue to have them work from home until things sort of normalize or there's a vaccine or whatnot. So we're still sort of working that out. But at the moment, the governor in our state has asked offices like ours to remain closed. There's a phased reopening plan. I think that's something that's been developed, or that's some flavor of that is being floated around the United States. Different states are taking more aggressive postures, obviously. In Pennsylvania, there's 13 or so rural counties that had, almost no, virus cases, and they're in sort of a yellow, red, green sort of type phase of reopening now. Restaurants still can't operate in, eat-in capacity. They can only do takeout, but people can go back to work. They're asking for people to do face masks in public and, in enclosed spaces and whatnot. So we expect that to come as the next phase in our area. Obviously, being in the Philadelphia region, it's, we're pretty dense, and we'll probably be at the final wave of whatever sort of reopening plan happens. But we're hopeful that in a few weeks or, sometime in June, we might start to see some normalization. But until people can, start to go back into restaurants and, the entire economy can reopen, it's really, questionable how things are going to play out.
And just switching back to the telecom side of things, you talked about your minutes that seemed reasonably close to where they were in previous years. Of course, what we do know is a lot of people have been using video conferencing, which would not be running on their minutes because it'd just be subject to a broadband connection. A lot of people have been using over-the-top services, Facebook, Messenger, WhatsApp, etc. These are, again, not contributing to people's minutes. How do you think things will change going forwards? Do you think people will, now that they've, successfully taken advantage of these technologies, do you think that will become a part of the new way of doing things, and they won't revert back to their old telecoms minutes?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think there's still sort of a common denominator, in terms of the telephone in the United States and other places. But those that have the technology, that have a video cam or a browser that has WebRTC, can easily go to a company's website, click a button, and, virtually, encounter them without having to, consume traditional telecom. So, putting that aside, the question of just, video collaboration and how that is, going to continue to be a larger part of our work day than it has been in the past, I think that's obvious. There is, I think, an initial rush to video where everybody sort of was forced to do this and felt that, consuming Zoom meetings and, WhatsApp and everything else right away was the thing to do. And, we're starved for human contact. So we're doing these happy hours and every other thing. And, it's exhausting because your brain, it actually works harder when you're, doing a video call because it's trying to process emotive, cues and all sorts of other things that it can't perceive as easily as it can in person. So it gets taxed. And if you're on these calls all day and then you pivot over into the evening into these, happy hours with friends and things like that, it can be, pretty exhausting. So we're seeing articles about that, and it's starting to be, a thing. So I think there'll be a bit of an equilibrium as people, collaborate where it's appropriate and, just sort of get used to it as a way of doing things. But the other aspect of it that we're dealing with a lot is the regulatory considerations. So a lot of industries in the United States have various regulators that require encryption and security around a lot of these communications. And while things were initially sort of free for all at the early phases of this, they're now starting to be a lot more stringent about how they adhere to these things. So, for example, securities, banking, healthcare, anything involving payment cards and whatnot, you really can't be using these services like Zoom and whatnot that go through these public servers and have, the multiplexing and the video, rendering happening there. It either has to be entirely peer-to-peer secure, or it has to be going through a private server. So we see a lot of folks doing, private Jitsi Meet and other things. I know companies like SignalWire have done, really interesting things developing products to meet that space. I know you guys have something, Cantina coming?
Indeed, yeah. We're working on a publicly consumable version of Cantina. As you know, a lot of our stuff in SignalWire is aimed at developers for them to take and use as building blocks. But we saw the opportunity in that people were a little bit wary on the security. On the security situation, and that's something that we had to offer in addition to sort of interesting functionality like the ability to look into existing meeting rooms, see who's in them, and if you're permitted to go and join them, and even, of course, and I think other people are cottoning onto this as well, but it's something we've done internally in SignalWire and in the FreeSwitch project for a long time, is to have video conferences just open all the time that are almost like water coolers, where a number of people can be in there. Maybe they're on mute and maybe they're doing other things, but somebody can strike up a conversation and others can join in. So yes, plenty of activity in SignalWire, and it would be remiss of me not to tell people that they could go to signalwire.com and look for the early beta of our publicly consumable version. Which systems have you been using most recently, Corey?
Well, we have sort of a white label Astra solution we've done for mid-size enterprises that we've actually, bolted a private video solution on top of, so we can use things like we were talking technically earlier about JSON Web Tokens and some other stuff. So we have a user portal where people can go in, schedule a meeting, send out invitations, and then securely join. It prevents people from having to fight to be the moderator and whatnot. So some cool stuff, and satisfies a lot of this regulatory consideration. So we're certainly doing that as well. Great stuff.
Yeah. And just looking to the future generally, and I thought that was very insightful what you were saying about people getting kind of video fatigue, and indeed totally agree that when we're in a face-to-face like this, there's a lot of non-verbal cues that you can't pick up on, obviously, but there's some that you can. And so I appreciate what you were saying about people having to expend more effort to have kind of a suitable level of communications. But where do you see the norm sort of leveling out to in terms of the mix of video communication versus other collaboration means?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think, just a little less than what we've been doing now because it's been a novelty. I think, and even today, it's gotten to, I think, a more normal level where, every day in the early phases of this, people were trying to video with their friends and do different things. And, that's dropped down to weekly, and instead of for 2 hours at a stretch, it's a little bit more of a normal time frame. So it's just, the things that we do in real life, right? We don't every day gather with these people for hours. We do it on a more prescribed time frame. So, I think as the virtual stuff ends up mimicking the real stuff, it's going to be a little bit more natural, and our brains are going to adapt, and we'll see. But I think everything is really working well as far as the video. Astonishingly well, given how rapidly every platform had to scale up to accommodate everything. It's just, a testament to these public cloud platforms and the infrastructure that they had available, that everything's working as well as it is. Yeah,
indeed. In fact, underlying this, there must be a number of cloud computing companies that are also doing very well as people run and get their extra machines. Just aside from the business side, I think the other thing that's happened in terms of video collaboration is most people probably had relatives down the road that they could visit anytime they wanted. And because those relatives were only a few minutes down the road, they didn't visit that often because they knew whenever they wanted, they could. So they didn't. And now all of a sudden they can't. Then I think that's also responsible for another increase in video communication, is you're talking to people that are actually not that far away and that you didn't talk to that often before, but now you're doing it because you can't do it in real life.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's interesting to see all the sort of little unintended ripple effects of this stuff. But we're all just eager to get back to a normal situation soon. So we're just grateful for everything the healthcare workers are doing, and just hopeful that there's a vaccine and there's really a return to normalcy, because this sort of half normal, half not stuff, it's depressing. So we're just hoping to get back to it soon.
We certainly do have a lot to be grateful for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Corey, we're coming towards an end of our time together. But before we do that, I want to ask the magic question that I often ask guests near the end of a CCW, and that is there anything else you'd like to say or tell us about?
Good question. No, I mean, I think we're, just getting used to where we're at, and looking forward to getting back to normal. Obviously, travel and conferences are currently in limbo, but we're hopeful to see our friends in the fall. I think October, there's a number of events that, we're likely to participate in as a company. And, we're really hoping they happen. So there's that. And just getting out of the house. All of our hobbies are abbreviated. Everything is just, it's just frustrating. So.
Indeed. Okay, well, thank you for stopping by and coming into the ClueCon Weekly Studio. We very much appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing you again somewhere further down the line.
Been fun.
All the best. Bye.
All right, David, be well.